Residents of the Hunter region of New South Wales say they are not getting straight answers from the state government on who is responsible for delivering a renewable transmission line that has them in its path. Senior reporter Kenny Heatley has spoken with affected and angry landholders in the area as the clock ticks down to Monday's close for submissions to have their say on a huge new energy project.
The goal to cut CO2 emissions by 70% by 2035 has triggered a once-in-a-generation infrastructure challenge. Ageing coal-fired power stations are reaching the end of their lives and are gradually shutting down. The problem is renewable energy projects are not located near existing power stations, and so thousands of kilometres of new high-voltage transmission lines are needed to be built. The Hunter Transmission Project is a planned 115-kilometre long, 500 kilovolt transmission line connecting Bayswater in the Upper Hunter to Eraring on the Central Coast. For the past 6 weeks, EnergyCo has held community information sessions and has been accepting submissions.
Of course, no one ultimately likes a transmission line in their backyard. They're not the prettiest pieces of infrastructure. And so, landowners either in the corridor, which is preliminary, I might add, or nearby are obviously concerned about the visual impacts and other sorts of impacts associated with the new transmission line, which is exactly why we want to hear from people so that we can make any refinements or improvements to the corridor before going into a proper planning process next year.
Thick bushland surrounds retiree Jim Blomfield's picturesque 120-acre property. He's been here for 25 years and recently hosted one of his son's weddings. The proposed route for the Hunter Transmission Project will cut through his and his neighbour's place.
They'll scrape the top off Burma Point and stick a 90-metre tower right up there. I mean, that's a disgrace.
He's convinced the submissions are pointless and believes EnergyCo is forging ahead with the planned route despite desperate calls from 80 affected landholders for an alternative.
They say there's no option of moving it. I believe there is. A very viable way of avoiding these properties. There's 4 of them, one after another, that they're going to string straight across the top.
Locals here want EnergyCo to follow this existing transmission line instead of diverting through pristine forests.
Those particular transmission lines that you're talking about then go through the Pecolbin vineyard area and through Cessnock and other heavily densely populated areas. And so at that point we wanted to divert into state forests rather than go through important tourist areas or vineyards and more private properties.
This is the whole problem. You've got the little single landholder versus the tourism industry. I can understand it, of course, but what happens here is the little guy just gets railroaded.
Someone from inside EnergyCo told me they're aware of a lot of misinformation circulating around these communities about the HTP on Facebook. Now, I had a search of several local related sites. I personally couldn't see any, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. But after speaking to people here and reading those posts online, it's clear that EnergyCo are losing the information war. If it does go ahead and they build it, what are you going to do?
Make as much noise as I possibly can.
And what's that going to achieve, do you think, once they're already installed?
I think there are a few politicians that need to look at their children and their grandchildren and say, you know what, I saved the Watagan Forest and the Corribbear Forest.
New South Wales Energy and Environment Minister Penny Sharp was unavailable for comment. Kenny Heatley, Sky News, Laguna.